There we go. Here I am. So if everybody can shut their video camera off, I'd appreciate that. I just ran up the stairs, so I'm going to take a minute and have a little drink. Somebody's got their video on, and that means people can't see me. They can only see you, although you're lovely. So welcome everyone to Friday Die Day. I really appreciate you being here, and today we're going to be studying on roses in the snow. And I began dyeing before you got here because I'm making a very dark color right now, and as you know, it takes a lot longer. But while this is working away, does everybody know what the roses in the snow are? It's a new collection I made of red dyes. Last week we did the winter barns, and this week we're doing roses in the snow. And we're going to play around with them a little bit and have some fun with them. They're just generally a little bit brighter reds than the reds we worked with last week. We also have some great sponsors this week. Beverly, Bonnie, Catherine, all sent a donation to keep this great dye show going. And of course, you know, the Welcome At sponsors it. That's where I house our recordings of these, so we can always go back and look at them. Sometimes I let them go out into the public, and I'm going to be letting this one go out into the public so that people can see what they can do with the roses. And Wanda Works, of course, this is my studio where I'm dyeing and where I come to work every day. And of course, Magic Carpet Dyes. Those are the dyes that I'm using. You can get those at wandaworks.ca. So this has been cooking for about 15 minutes. And I added about 1/4 of a teaspoon of citric acid. And I used Prim, 1/2 teaspoon. So this is what Prim looks like. I also have her here. I'll probably use this instead. That's what Prim looks like. This is what I'm suggesting you do. Put little, when you get your booklets like this, that you steal a little bit off the corner and put it on your jars so that you can see what it looks like. It's really helpful, especially when you have similar colors. Or even it's helpful if you do that for all your dyes, because then you can just look and go, yes, that's the one I want. Now I want to make a lighter Prim. So this time when I make light Prim, I'm going to use 1/32 of a teaspoon. And we'll be able to see the difference. This is sort of what I want to do, is provide you with some playtime and some visuals. Of the 5 colors in this collection, this one's the so-called dullest one. It really is the dullest one, but it's not nearly as dull as the other ones in the other collection, Winter Barns. Many of you got both collections, and that's wonderful. Thank you. I think you're going to have a lot of fun because you can cross-purpose them as well. Okay, let's stir this up. I want to keep giving this a stir too, because you know, I've added acid and I want to keep the water moving, because if I don't, I'll get mottling. Now, if you want that, if you want your wool to have darker and lighter spots, then don't move it around so much. I'd rather have differently colored spots myself that were close in value than just lighter and darker spots of the same color. It adds more excitement to your work. All right, I'm going to fire this in. This isn't very hot, so I'm going to turn it up. It's really fun for me to see the difference of these colors, how it changes so much between dark and light. Of course, they have family resemblances, but we can really see how wonderful they can be at these different values. All right, so today there's just so many things happening right now. I had a really bad flood yesterday in my studio again, and I just decided to wear my pajamas to work. I hope you don't mind. I mean, that means I can just take a kip whenever I want, if I can find a dry place to lay down. It's nice and dry here though when I'm dyeing. It's just out in my greater body of my studio that this is happening. All right. Things are coming along nicely with this one. I had turned it down to warm and I'm going to turn it up a little bit. This is just nicely heating up and it's a good opportunity for me to answer any questions you might have right now. Does anybody have any questions? No? Patrice had a good question this week. She asked me in our collaboration meeting on Zoom, and she was having difficulty getting her oranges to take up. And it's really good to wait as long as you can. Don't do what I do here, but wait as long as you can to add acid. And to have quite a high heat. I don't know if I went over that with Patrice, but when I'm not doing this show because I'm distracted by your presence, not that you're not lovely, but I'm trying to do many things at once. I would have this at 300 or 350, a real rolling boil if I were dyeing yellow or orange. And I wait a very long time to add citric acid when I'm dyeing those colors. And especially she was trying to make something very dark, a lot of dye in it. So patience is needed. I like to do that work sometimes in the oven too. I don't have an oven here, but it's good for me to be able to have all over heat coming from all sides. That's also helpful. And you can just do that at the end where it's not quite taking up. You can just pour the whole thing into a pan, whatever you use to cook things in the oven with dyeing, and it'll help it take up. And plus, you forget about it a little bit too, which helps you be more relaxed. Okay. This is starting to clear up nicely. Just leave it a couple more minutes. And this hasn't even heated up yet because I was having a meeting with my manager and trying to figure out what's up. Okay, I think it's time to add acid to this. Most of the dye is taken up already. I think my jar gets like little crumbs of acid on it. It gets harder and harder to open. So one of these days I'm going to take and clean that off when it's empty. So I just added a pinch to that, which is 1/16. This gets real noisy, doesn't it? Okay. So here is Prim. A little darker, and you can see how rich it's getting. Isn't that lovely? Now I do have a little bit of dye left in here, but just because of this show, I'm not gonna try to get it out of there. So do I have something I can put in? One of the things I wanted to do was show you an ultra light. Oh, here I have a little piece of weird. Does this ever happen to you? Right at the end of your bolt, you end up with like maybe 12 inches or 10 inches. I always save these and I usually make something quite glorious out of them, but this time we'll make a really light Prim. Get it wet. And I just threw that in there. It got nice and wet for me. And we're going to be able to see what Prim looks like when it's very light. And it's quite delightful. Now, I didn't bring Murky Bastard with me today. I had had enough of Murky Bastards with my leaks in my roof and everything. But it's sometimes fun to add Murky Bastard to these brighter colors too. So there we go. Isn't it lovely? All right, let's move along to our next one. This time I'm going to dye Prim with moss green. That's what we did last week too, just so we can compare and contrast them. I am going to use 1/32. So my follow-up on the welcome mat might be delayed today because might be delayed by a couple of days because I have quite a roster of things I need to take care of today. One of them is self-care and maintenance. I have to get my hair cut, thank goodness. I'm gonna have to use a weed whacker practically. Then my daughter's arriving because they have to stay over with us while their house is being moved into. Too many children to be in that chaos. Okay, so now I've got 1/32 of moss green, 1/32 of Prim. You could use any of the others too and get a beautiful result. Get rid of these threads. I have to really stir this because acid is present in here and the water is really hot. And to get it smooth as I can, I've got to keep stirring it for a minute or so. I'm probably going to end up with a mottled effect anyways, we'll see. Because when you have acid and heat and dye and wool present, they're in love and they want to clasp onto each other as tightly and as quickly as they can. Okay, that's looking good. So here's Prim, darker, more medium, and lighter. All right, now I want to try Prim with turquoise. That's something else we did last week, and I'm going to use the same measurement again so that we can compare what we did last week. So 1/32 of Prim, 1/32 of turquoise. Now, as you know, you could do this trick with all of these different dyes. It's just kind of fun because they will relate to each other, but there will be beautiful temperature differences in them. And that's always super fun to use. If you needed to make a building, you could show where light was shining on one part and it's shadowed in the other. Direct sunlight and indirect sunlight, that's how that all happens if you're interested in learning about those sorts of things. Yeah, so it could be that this, whenever I use the same water, I have to be mindful that sometimes my acid gets exhausted. That means gets used up. Maybe it gets tired too. Could get very tired. And then I need to add a little bit more. So if things aren't taking up properly, just add a tiny bit more. Don't go crazy with acid. It's hard on our utensils, like our dye pots and things. And it's also, you know, we have to rinse it out of the wool. We can't leave it in there. So I like to try to just use the least and still have it effective. Let's get you down there, Bubbly. So because, you know, I'm beginning with reds and I'm adding these opposite colors, similar things are happening that did last week, but I'm going to lay them out with last week so you can see the difference, because there are beautiful and subtle differences. Okay. Now I'm going to be what I like to describe as a nasty dyer, which I'll sometimes throw something back in. Normally I have nylons to do this. I'm just going to rip this in half so we have some that's over dyed with this new color and some that isn't. But this is going to help calm this down. And personally, I'm always at home, this is the way I dye. I'm looking for a color, not a repeatable exercise necessarily, because I like to use a multitude of colors when I do things. And you know, like I might have 7 oranges that represent the orange family in my rug, so that I can make little subtle differences if I want to. There. So just to compare it, see, calmed it down a little. Boy, it's a beautiful little pink. Pinks are hard to make. All right, let's move along to our next one. I'm going to combine 2 of these that belong to the same group. I'm going to combine Prim with Dublin. Let me get Prim just so because it's on the list first, right? I got to keep regular. I can't be jumping all over here. So Prim, 1/32. And then Dublin. Now Dublin almost has a violet quality to it. It's quite lovely. I'll put that in there. And I'm being fairly generous with my measurements. I'm not a skimpy measurer. I press the dye into the side of the jar, and I press hard. You know, think brown sugar. So sometimes people say to me, oh, my things don't turn out quite as richly as yours. And that's probably why. So our holidays are coming up. We're going to have a little break. And I'm not going anywhere per se, but I have several days that I don't have anything planned. And because of that, I need a bit of a rest, and also you know, my daughter's moving and everything, and it's the holidays. There's a lot of things to do. I won't be having a Friday dye date until I believe it's January 6th. It's the first Friday in January anyway. And I hope that you do some catching up with Friday dye date if you can, and try out some of these fun things that we've been doing. I also want to say everyone who has had an order into Wanderworks, it's all been sent. I had a couple of orders yesterday, and they've been sent out already this morning. And I really appreciate your business and support, and your membership to the Welcome Mat too. I want to talk a little bit about our January journal project. We've been doing January journals on the Welcome Mat for ages, and we have a big spread in Rug Cookie Magazine, the January, February issue, and I was hoping it would be out soon. We'll see. But if you're interested in doing that, you only have to join the Welcome Mat for 1 month, and it's really going to give you a feel for what's available here. So there's the turquoise and Prim. It's quite subtle and beautiful. If we had to make distant mountains, this would be just the ticket. Okay, so now I also am still back to playing my game where I want to add these 2 together. So I have China and I have Roxy. So they're sort of on leaning the either side of red, and I'm going to combine them and we'll see what happens. Well, let me just add a piece of wool to this because it's a little bit dirty, and I want this to be a nice clear color. When I say it's dirty, there's a little bit residual violet in there. So I'm just going to use this piece I have to the side. Normally I like to use nylons for this, but you know, I forgot today to bring some. So I'll just sweep this around. I really like doing this because sometimes I get the most bizarre and, you know, weird and ugly colors, but I'll tell you, almost always I'm like, okay, that's exactly what this person needs. So this makes really super flesh tone. If you're interested in any kind of portraiture, look at that. So that was just the leavings of violet, or the Prim and the turquoise, sorry. I'm gonna stir this a little. Things are getting away on me. Okay, so now we are gonna combine Roxy, I better get it in my hand, and China. So equal amounts of them, same as always, 1/32, not making it hard to remember. Roxy is a super beautiful red orange, and it's hard to get a good proper color wheel red orange. I was happy with the results of my laboratory experiments to be able to get that. And Roxy is so close to red violet. It's not funny. So let me turn this down. This is getting a bit excitable. It's going to be like bacon fat splashing me in a minute. All right. Excuse me. This really does make me want to hook flowers. What's happening here in my dye pots? You really got to get this going here because of the acid that's already in there. Frequent stirring like this is also really great for forcing dye through your wool. You want to be careful you're not splashing it. All right, I can move over to this one now. Look how gorgeous this was prim with Dublin. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? We'll have roses in the snow. You guys know that song? Okay, so Roxy and Dublin we did. And oh no, I did prim with Dublin, Roxy in China. Now I'm Roxy and Dublin. Let's see how that looks. This is going to be interesting. You notice that I did not prepare myself properly. I don't have my Tyvek, little numbers so I can tell them apart. This is gonna, I'm getting used to these though. I hadn't dyed very much with them, just samples that I was making to see their qualities. But now I'm getting used to them and I understand what their combinations are. So I thought I didn't need to have my Tyvek notes. Do you know what that is, right? I cut up Tyvek and I write on it with Sharpie saying what, whatever number or name that I give a specific dye combination. And let's hope it's true that I don't need it. I better put them on right after, I think. I've got a lot of things that have to happen today, so I might forget. Does that happen with you? Your memory is directly related to the number of things that you have to overcome or do? Okay. So this is yet another gorgeous color. So if I wanted to make Shirley poppies, you know how they can be multicolored, or Icelandic poppies that are that interesting coral color. These two would be great in combination with this one to create that. It's pretty gorgeous. I'll give you a look. Look at that. This is really kind of an interesting study in making pinks, which are a super hard color to make. And I have to say too that even really experienced dyers like to buy reds from me because my reds are super great. That always makes me happy when that happens. But now you can make super great reds very easily. I'm happy to be able to help you do that just right out of the jar. These combinations, of course, are what has made pink. So we'll wait now. I just have one last one I want to do. I want to make this ultra light Dublin. So please open up your microphones and say whatever you want to say. And I also, before I forget, want to take this opportunity to wish you happy holidays and tell you how much I appreciate you. Bless you.
Wanda, Catherine here. I have a question.
Yeah, can you speak up, hon?
Oh, sure. Can you hear me now?
The dripping water.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what actually are these dyes made out of? When I have no idea. When you create these colors, you're not mixing up your other dyes that we purchase. You're mixing up what? Powdered chemicals of?
Well, I mean, all of our dyes that aren't from natural dyes are made up of chemicals, but
yeah,
let's just say it's like baking, like you have flour, you have sugar, you have baking soda. It's kind of like that. I have all these different ingredients that are
but what are they called when you get them to mix them together?
Oh, they're called crazy things. Like I'll get one thing and it'll be called something else. It's ridiculous. So there's all these weird names to them. So yeah, when I got this company, I inherited certain amount of what had to go on. And you don't want to
Right.
change that unless you enjoy being tarred and feathered 1,000 times during your lifetime.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept those things the same. But I remember when my accountant was going over my books, she goes, well, where does this color come from? And I said, well, it comes from this and that. Well, it's not even called that. And I said, yes, I know. It's like, yeah, so I just buy dye stuffs and then I create these colors. And that's all I can tell you before I have to kill you.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to find your your secrets
Yeah.
stuff,
Well,
but
no one would ever want to do what I do because the investment is so huge. You have to buy like 60 pounds of dye stuff at a time.
Okay.
Sometimes certain things I have to buy 100 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I don't think anybody with half a brain would want to do that.
No,
I don't even have a half a brain anymore. So
Okay.
here's this beautiful one. Isn't it lovely?
Gorgeous.
I'm pretty sure this was Roxy in China. I just look at them when I put them out together. Isn't that scrumptious? Oh, pink's about love. Pink's about love. They say red's about passion and pink is for love. I'm feeling the love today. Does anybody else have anything they want to say?
Wanda, this is Patrice.
Yes, Buttrick, can you speak up for me, please?
I'm interested in knowing roughly how much acid is in each of those pots. With my yellow, I did all the things that you suggested. I waited 30 minutes to add acid. I stirred
don't
it.
wait by a minute. Let's take this one step at a time. I don't wait by a minute. I wait by what's in the pot. So
Well, that's what you had suggested to me when it didn't work the first time, to wait 30 minutes. So I did. But anyway,
but I can't tell how long it takes you. And I'm telling you, you could be, it could be something, all variances everywhere. So I'm always looking in the pot to see what's happening before I decide when I'm going to add acid. So altogether, I mean, this pot had more in it because I was dyeing that dark color. But I think altogether, and the dark color isn't as dark as the color you were trying to get, right? There's not as much dye in here as there was in what you were trying to do. But probably the best thing to do, Patrice, is just go back through and watch it again, because I did tell it every time how much I added.
Today?
Yeah. Yep. And you also have to understand, I have 2 yards of wool I'm dyeing here in quarter yards. There's 8 pieces that I'm dyeing. And so that's a lot of wool that I'm processing with kind of very little acid. But I'm also not making a color like you were trying to make, which is another kettle of fish. When I did it, you saw that I basically processed that the entire time I was online, and then more afterwards. Yeah. So sometimes it's just one little thing that's happening, and that's why I said, oh, let me come to your house, because unless I'm kind of there, I don't necessarily know exactly what's transpiring, if that makes any sense to you. So I want to be right and religious. So I always have this little sheet here that tells me about my toothpick measures, because I don't usually pay any attention to them. But a damp, let's get one. A damp round toothpick into a 1/2 inch is 1/256. So I put it in higher, but I just don't let that much of it go in, and I'll rinse the rest off. There we go. So now what I'm trying to do is see what Dublin looks like when it's ultra light. I'm sorry I can't answer you any better than that, Patrice, but you can always come here and I can work with you till you get it. That's always fun. I used to, when we didn't have COVID, and I used to do a lot of dye mentorship where people would just come and I'd work through where they wanted to go and what they wanted to be able to make and like partially show them and mostly coach them, right? Like you would be where I am now dyeing and I would just be coming along saying, oh yeah, well, what's going to happen if you add this? Or what do you think about that to help you refine your colorways? That's for people who want to learn how to dye without, you know, formulas, or if they have formulas to be able to do riffs on them. So here's Dublin, light color, right? No acid needed because there was enough acid in the water already processed. And that's also a really great flesh color for a child. All right. Now this one's taken a little bit longer, but probably because it needs acid and I've been ignoring it. Does anybody else have any questions? Also, Patrice, I want to say, I'm sorry I can't help you more. I really am. But I would look at my pot and wait to see how much dye is taken up. And I wouldn't add acid till it almost is all taken up. I might add Synthropol. You can see the way I'm stirring. It's not real stirring, it's pushing back and forth. I do lots of that. And then I put a lid on and walk away. So I also want to say, I cook these things at a very high heat, especially yellow or orange likes that, and no acid. And I will add the acid, then turn off the heat, put the lid on and walk away. When I come back in 40 minutes or so, it's all taken up and very little rinses out. Some rinses out, but not much.
How much acid did you just put in right there?
Probably 1/16, and that made this rest of this take in. Yeah, I don't use very much. So here's this last dye. Lovely, eh? Roxy in Dublin. Now, of course, every time we have a formula that we use, we can change its value by just changing our spoons. It's as easy as that. Double the amount of dye means you move darker by one value. Cutting that measurement in half means you move lighter by one value. And you can also work with your wool. If you have this over a 1/4 yard and you want it to be 4 times lighter, you dye it over a yard. Yeah, it's easy. There's all these calculations for us to transfer these things, and we don't need to worry about that because we can just change our wool or change our spoons. So are there any more questions for today? We're all done. We've done it all. Let me see what time it is. Oh my goodness. That was like Olympian. I deserve a gold medal.
Well, I have a question. Like, is Roses in the Snow really a song?
Yes.
Oh,
it really is. It's an Andrew Harris song. I think other people sing it too, but it starts, I met my darling in springtime when all the flowers were in bloom, and like the flowers our love blossomed. We were married in the month of June.
Oh.
And then she goes to the chorus, and that's where it talks about roses in the snow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And now you got a song on top of it.
Yeah, it'll probably be in my head all day now.
I'm sorry. Our love is like a burning ember, Catherine.
Oh gosh.
All right, my friends. Anybody else? Any questions? Anything you want to ask or say? You need to know? You good?
Good.
Pardon?
Yes, I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Okay,
and
bye.
I will see you soon.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Okay.
Merry
Yes.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you too.
Thank you, Wanda.
Bye-bye.
Everything.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye, Wanda. Happy
Thank you.
holidays to everyone.